So Richard Nixon, hearing all of these countries wanting to expatriate their gold, sat there and said, you know what, we're going to pull the dollar off the gold standard, meaning it's not going to be backed by gold anymore. It's going to become what we call fiat currency that's not backed by anything other than what the government says that it's worth and the people's faith in that currency.
Welcome to the Freedom CEO podcast. It's about becoming the chief decision maker over your life in order to step into a life of freedom. From business, health, wealth, charity, and giving back to just doing life on your own terms. I am your host, Shae. I am an award-winning activist, change maker, and a multifaceted impact entrepreneur with over a decade of experience in business, philanthropy, and health and wellness. In this space, I'm going to be bringing you insights, not just from me, but from incredible thought leaders around the globe to help you start making decisions towards living a life of freedom so you can live a life you love. Are you ready, guys? Because we are going all in. Today's episode is so important for the current global environment we are all living in. Financial empowerment and literacy has never been more needed than it is right now. And in this episode, I sit down with Danielle and Mark Michaud to do just this. They're two dynamic individuals who are passionate about helping others achieve both financial and time freedom. We discuss gold and silver, the current economic climate, including the BRICS Nations, interest rates, and the fragility of fiat currency, which is crucial for individuals to safeguard their financial futures. Most importantly, we dive into the solutions, giving you action steps you can take to navigate the uncertainties of the economic landscape in 2024 and how you can best be prepared towards securing your financial well-being. Are you ready? I hope you enjoy this one. I'm really excited to start off this year in 2024 with two incredible humans that I felt in everything that's going on in the world right now between the economy, we're talking about inflation, rates, banks are buying up gold, Costco just started selling gold as well. And I thought so many people are looking for answers, but also looking for solutions for so many evident problems happening in our world right now. And so I wanted to bring on two friends who I've had the pleasure of really kind of getting to know over the past 8 months, Danielle and Mark. Thank you for joining me today on the Freedom CEO podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much.
Excited to be here.
So we connected on this topic around gold, silver, and I thought I would share a little bit of my story and background because it's not, I talk about it here and there, but probably a lot of people listening have no idea that I've actually been investing in gold, silver, precious metals for over 5 years personally. And then I met Danielle and Mark, like I said, about 8 months ago, and you guys were also investing. And I'm going to talk about that later on our show time together as well, because I think a lot of people think about gold as an investment. I look at it as an insurance policy. So we're going to break that down later, that I think will maybe help change some people's perspectives and understanding as to why you should be acquiring. So like I shared, I started acquiring about 5 years ago. And I started actually with silver, which is not typical for most people, but it's cheaper than gold. And so with the capital that I had, I was like, let me start in some of the precious metals. Plus there's more longevity for use of silver around the world. It's practically in everything that we utilize. So for me, logically, that just kind of made sense. I was like, well, it's cheaper than gold. It has more versatility. Therefore, in the long run, it's probably actually going to start going up and I'll get a higher appreciation and ROI on what I've purchased. The main thing I found when I was quote unquote shopping around that I think a lot of people have today is, number one, where do you get it? But then who do you trust, right? Like, how do you know that the silver or the gold that you're purchasing is actually pure? It's not mixed in with other metals, maybe like copper. And so that was a concern of mine in my due diligence, was like, where do I get it? Who do I trust? And then what I also found, which I believe is a barrier of entry for a lot of people, is actually the minimum requirement that most companies, miners, dealers, if you will say, yeah, you can buy gold and silver, precious metals, but it's minimum 5,000, 10,000, sometimes even higher than that. And most people don't just have that type of liquid cash sitting around for a rainy day, or like I said earlier, in case shit happens, right? An insurance policy. So that was kind of the beginning of my journey. I didn't really think about it too much then as what it meant for other people, but this is what I observed, was it was a higher threshold to get in, limited on where to find it and who do you trust. And luckily for, myself, one of our clients in real estate that we deal with in Canada, he has a mining company. So that kind of solved it for me. I was like, okay, I know you, I trust you. I can see the vault, or not see it, but I know where it is, and I'm in good hands. And so I think where I want to dive in with you guys is why did you guys start purchasing gold and silver, and like what was your experience? Because on my end, I'm in real estate, as you guys know. And so I'm all about diversification of your portfolio, right? Like you should have real estate assets, stock market, depending on what your perspective is, but it's still good to have some in there. So that for me, the precious metals, gold and silver, was about kind of 10%. That's kind of, if you're in the investor world, you're taking 10% of your net worth and you're putting it into precious metals. I wasn't looking at it really as I'm going to need this come 2020, 2021, maybe currently where we're sitting right now in the world. I wasn't thinking about it like that. It was an insurance policy. It was like, in case shit happens, which maybe it probably won't. And now our reality is different as we're learning, right? So yeah, let's start with your story, why and how you got involved, and like, what was your experience?
All right. Do you want to start?
Sure. I'll just simply say, and I want to stress, we're not financial planners. We're not giving tax advice. I just want to put that disclaimer out there. We're just telling you our story. And I have to tell you, it's been a savior, because it was 3 years ago that, we were looking at our bank account. This is right at the beginning of COVID.
4 years ago.
Was that 4 years? Wow, time flies. We're looking at our bank account and it's actually going backwards. We'd gone in specifically to ask for an interest-bearing account, because you want to earn money on your money. And we had a decent amount of money in there. We were expecting to earn a pretty good interest rate. I didn't look at what the rates were. I just kind of assumed, based upon past history of, way things always had been. But when I looked at the bank account that morning, it was actually going backwards. Our fees were only $7 a month, and we weren't even earning that. And I'm like, this is nuts. How are we going to be able to ever, retire? I'm in my 50s. Danielle just went into her 50s, and we're in a situation where we wanted to find something that was more solid. And we follow Robert Kiyosaki, and he was always talking about gold and silver. And that's what kind of tweaked the initial interest in us. You want to take it from there?
Yes, he is.
There you go. That's it. Exactly.
It was his constant messaging. And I always say, maybe he's probably, I always thought of Robert Kiyosaki as the real estate guy. I never thought about him as gold and silver. But for some reason, in 2020, everything just kept pointing to gold and silver. It was like it was illuminated in front of me. And I'm like, why is gold and silver all of a sudden like showing up? And so I truly believe there are no coincidences. And that was a message for us to move forward. But exactly your story, we were like, once we made the decision we wanted it, we were paralyzed. We're like, where do you go? What do you get? Huge with, how do we know it's going to be real? Right. And so it just so happens the next day I'm on social media and a friend posts a Robert Kiyosaki quote about gold and silver. So I reached out and I said, hey, are you buying gold and silver? And she said, we are. And I said, can we give you guys a call? This was a couple. And Mark ended up on the phone with a gentleman named John, and basically kind of told him where we were at. And John said, go to your local dealer. And so we ended up, Mark called our local dealer. We're in Maine. So it was Maine Gold and Silver. Mark told him what our plan was, what we wanted to do. The guy said, give me 3.
And actually, I connected him and John because I had no idea what to even ask.
Yeah.
I just said, hey, talk to this guy. And then I sat there and listened. That was it.
And I always say, when, here's the deal. When you're not educated, it's extremely intimidating, right? And we want to be sure we're not taken advantage of. I mean, we have seen in the last 4 years what happens when we're not in the know about things, right? We can be led down the wrong path and taken advantage of. So Mark did that. And anyways, got the green light, went in. We go in. I was the whole way there. I was really worried about all those things we just talked about, but we went in and it was literally an exchange. We didn't receive any information. We didn't receive any education. We didn't even receive, we weren't even asked what we wanted. Not that we would have known what to ask for, but
Sure.
He wasn't even like, okay, here are your options. It was all decided. We always say we walked in clueless. We walked out still clueless, but now we had gold and silver, right? So we put it away in our safe. We're like, I don't know what you do with it. We've got it. Now what, right? Put it away in our safe and really didn't think much more about it until 6 months later when our friend Kathy called to share this amazing gold and silver membership with us.
I love that. And, so I think you bring up something really important. Like, I love the analogy, but for real, of you walking in clueless and walking out still clueless, but now you had gold and silver. And one of the things, as I put up, if you are tuning in on the audio, I pulled up one of my favorite books by Robert Kiyosaki, which is called Fake. If you don't know that name, you probably have heard somewhere along the line of the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I read it when I was, maybe a teenager, like years ago. This book has been around for a very long time. And I still have it to today. And if you open it up, it's underlined and highlighted and my notes in it. He is probably one of the most well-rounded, balanced businessmen that you'll meet, who's very, very honest about a lot of things, right? When it comes to real estate investing and talking about precious metals, gold and silver. And he heavily believes in it. And he's one of them that constantly says, it's an insurance policy. I'm not investing in gold and silver. This is, and you hope that you never need to use it. But if you do, we know that the world is in some sort of turmoil and chaos. And at least you have a solution. And hopefully you have purchased enough and acquired enough that it'll carry you through these harder times. So if you've, and I'm not going to go into the book today, but this is a really easy, simple resource, Fake. And it's all about money and fiat and the fake teachers, the fake concepts that we have been brought up in the society to believe. And he breaks it down really easily and dives much better, not to insult any of us on the call today in our conversation, but he really breaks it down in such depth that our conversation today is to help you to start to think about so many things that's not being talked about in the mainstream media or is being brushed over in the media and being minimalized. For example, like, let's talk about the BRICS Nations. You hear this happening, and last summer, we were all waiting in anticipation around what's going to happen when they all come together for conference. And it was mind-blowing to me, and I'm sure you guys can relate, when you say to people, BRICS Nations, how many people still don't know, one, what that is, have never even heard of it. And so we'll break it down. Basically, it's a handful of nations that have come together to really move away from the US dollar currency as we've known it, as the accepted worldwide trade fiat currency. And so the founding nations for that is the Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And all of this talk and that's gone over the past, really 7-8 months is talking about over 40 other countries that are considering to be joining in. And what does that do to the United States, which, as we know, and their neighbor in the north up here in Canada, everything that happens in the US affects us. If their dollar weakens, the Canadian dollar weakens. If they go to war, Canada's going to war, right? So everything, we feel that ripple effect. And so it's really important as Canadians to understand this and pay attention And we just had recently Iran and Saudi Arabia shaking hands with Russia to say, yep, no more US dollar trading. We're coming off of that. And they wanted to join BRICS. Your guys' perspective, share a bit, like, what does that mean when you guys hear that?
Well, I'll tell you what, for me, it's well, it's a bell to go out there and start protecting whatever we got for assets right now. The dollar is not right. It's losing its prestige in the world. The only thing that was really giving the dollar its power, because since it was taken off the gold standard, the only thing that really made so people wanted it was the world's reserve currency, but it was the only thing that the Saudi Arabia would take for oil. It was the only thing. And like you just said, they just did join the BRICS effective January 1st, along with Iran and a lot of other OPEC nations, all the oil producers. So here we are going green over here. You got all the other nations that produce all the stuff to go green, not us. And, and our dollar's worthless on the world stage. They're flooding back right now. All the dollars are coming back. And here in the US, people are just walking around blindly, like the dollar's still is strong. It's going to come back. And I'm even listening to some of these economic professionals talking about, it might be a recession. It's like, just understanding the fact that the dollar on the world stage has no value. It's going to be, I think, worse than a recession, especially the fact that only 1% of people have precious metals, and they're probably going to be blindsided by it. And so for me, it's a little bit of we need to wake up people. People need to at least get educated. They need to know what's going on, because they're being told on all the mainstream media that everything's going to be okay. We might go into it, might be tough, but we're going to come through it. And I don't know if that's the case. So that's why I think everybody needs to look into it and see what they can do about protecting everything they work so hard for. And so I would mention that.
Well, I just want to address what you said, that people they don't know what's going on. When you look and you start to understand about gold and silver, and Robert Kiyosaki, it was so many things that he said for me that just kind of the light bulb went off. But first and foremost, when I heard him call it God's money, and he talks about how it has been here since the creation of Earth. It's biblical, right? It was always intended for us to hold and to have, but it has been kept from us. It's kept from us physically, but the knowledge of it, the understanding of it has also been kept from us. I was a teacher. All right. I spent 14 years teaching. The fact that we are not taught and we're not teaching our children about gold and silver, something that is so practical, it's so grounded, it's simple, right? Instead of identifying our fiat currencies, I'm sure, which is what you were doing when you were 5 in Canada, it's what we were doing when we were 5 and entering school, we could have had them identifying gold and silver. And had we learned about gold and silver from the get-go, every single one of us would have been saving in gold and silver. We wouldn't have been saving in our fiat currencies. We would have been saving in gold and silver, which would have put us in a completely different financial situation right now today. So if, I think about your listeners and those who are maybe this is the first time they're even thinking about gold and silver. I just want them to know and to understand where you are is where we were 4 years ago. And yes, it's 4 years, but you have not missed out. There is still time. There is, I would definitely say there's a sense of urgency. We need to move. People need to start moving quickly on this. But it's once you put you can wrap your head around it, you understand, okay, this makes sense. And I do need to move forward. And there is a way and it kind of goes back. Well, so I'm sure we'll touch upon it, but we have found a way where the masses can take part in saving in gold and silver. And that's what I love. We're not leaving anybody out. We don't leave anybody behind. We want to take everybody with us to set themselves up so they don't have to worry about the chaos going around the world. We can't control that, but we can take action and control things, that we can control. And this is one of them.
So Danielle, you mentioned something really, I think, profound, that if we would have learned about gold and silver when we were younger, we would have been saving in gold and silver. The only reason why that statement is, no, I shouldn't say the only, but one of the reasons why that statement is factual is because the dollar was removed and taken off of the gold standard. And Mark, you had brought that up. And I want to make sure we're not losing people with sometimes language that we're in terms that we're familiar with. So can you break down, first off, what is the gold standard? And then what does it mean that the dollar came off the gold standard?
You want me to cover that?
Yes.
Okay. Back in 1913, when the Fed was created, you have a dollar and it's worth $1 in purchasing power. So whatever you could buy then, you could have great purchasing power. Over time, you started seeing a decline of what you could buy with that paper money. It was backed by gold. Now, you had World War I, World War II come into play. World War II, after that, all the allies got together in New Hampshire and they decided, okay, well, the U.S. is separate from all these other European countries where all the conflict, a lot of it was taking place. So we're going to have them and their dollar be the gold. That's going to be the world's reserve currency. All the currencies around the world are going to be based around the dollar, which at that time we had Fort Knox, and it was just a lot of gold in Fort Knox that was backing the value of that paper money.
The Bretton Woods Agreement.
It was the Bretton Woods Agreement in which that was declared, and that was in New Hampshire. Okay. So now you've got the dollar that's backed by gold. So that what that does for governments is it limits their spending because gold is worth so much. And if it's backed by that, you can't just go spending it recklessly because you only got so much gold there. And so all these other countries, they had their gold here too. And in order for them to be able to transport it and ship it across the seas, they made it into the paper dollar. It's a lot easier than transporting the physical gold. Well, what they started seeing was that we were getting into more wars and the U.S. was recklessly spending, which is similar. You hear it today.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so all these countries now said, you know what? We want our gold back. We don't want the paper money. We want our gold. So Richard Nixon, hearing all of these countries wanting to expatriate their gold, sat there and said, you know what? We're going to pull the dollar off the gold standard, meaning it's not going to be backed by gold anymore. It's going to become what we call fiat currency. Fiat currency, for those who don't know, because we didn't know, is currency that's not backed by anything other than what the government says that it's worth and the people's faith in that currency. I mean, there's no value in paper. And so when they pulled it off, all of a sudden it just made it so countries could print whatever they wanted. And historically, what's happened with it, when a country's currency has gotten into trouble, they start printing more of it. It's not backed by anything, so they can print off as much as they want. It's a printing press. Problem is it devalues that paper money even more. That means you can't buy as much. That's why you're seeing this inflation. We're seeing prices go like this in the supermarket. People don't understand it. I'll just ask you, what are you paying when you get groceries? Is the price going up or is it coming down? If it's going up, it's because our country has printed all of this money. If you take a look at how our country has printed money in the past, it's gone like this. Then right when this administration got elected, it went like this. And so they printed money, candidly speaking. We have two of the top economic advisors here. They want to get rid of the dollar as the world's reserve currency. And they want to take us to what's called a central banking digital currency system. Now, that would be where they can control what we spend our money on, because now it's in a central bank. It's digital. They don't like what you're spending money on. They don't like who you're donating political contributions to. Boop. And you've seen that in Canada with the truckers. With single, I mean, so there's a bigger motive here in terms of the printing of this money, sending trillions overseas. I mean, billions and billions overseas, adding up into the trillions, which is ridiculous. I mean, the thing that blew my mind was that in the past 3 months, our national debt in the U.S. increased $1 trillion. In the past 6 months, or 3 months prior to that, it was $1 trillion. In the past 4 years, $11 trillion. It's getting higher and higher. We can't even pay the interest on the debt. We have to borrow more and more money. And so that when you don't have anything backing your paper money, it's just candidly speaking, a ticking time bomb, because these fiat currencies have historically had a 100% failure rate. And so I hope that made it a little bit clear for people. I didn't understand any of it. That's why we want to educate people. We want people to get it. You don't have to learn it all, but just understand the value of your dollar is dropping. And I'll give you an example. Today, remember I said it was 1913 was worth $1. Today it's 3 cents comparatively. What that means is what used to cost you 3 cents now costs you $1. And some people might be, that's, you know, that's, but if you take that 3 cents and you blow it up to the price of a car, blow it up the price of a home, and then that increase, it's made it so it's just losing value by the second. And
people's wages are not keeping up with that increase, which is why people are having a hard time to get ahead.
And it like you have brought up the fact that it obviously there's a lot of intention that's being done around here, and they know what they're printing and how much they're printing. And they've printed more money than they ever had in history, just in the last couple of years, which if you didn't know that fact alone is worth going and doing more research on and understanding, as Mark, you just said, the inflation of what cost 3 cents and now is costing you basically $1.20. I mean, I remember gas prices when you were growing up, and now they're just like off the charts crazy. And if they lower by 20 cents, you're like, why is gas so cheap today? Meanwhile, it's still skyrocket high, but we've been so conditioned in this slow migration of believing that this is now, and I hate the term, but the new normal, right? And all of this being pushed into, you mentioned the central digital banks, and you have to devalue the dollar to basically being nothing, paper money being worth nothing. And there was times where, I think it was in Germany, right? They were burning money in the streets to keep warm in winter, because literally the same thing happened there. Same thing happened in Venezuela, where overnight what was valuable had no value anymore. And I think that's really important for people to understand, that as they continue to print the money, we are heading towards what I call a collapse, as opposed to a depression or a recession. I should say that backwards: recession, depression. But really, it's this collapse and of what we know it to be. And going back to our conversation around, well, what is your insurance policy if that happens? What insurance do you have? And this is where we come in with these solutions to offer. Mark, you mentioned at the beginning, we're not giving financial advice, we're not giving investment advice, just simply sharing what we have done. And if it makes sense, we would love to have further conversations, happy to answer questions. And even actually, I should bring up too, I think I've showed you guys before, but like, I literally wear investment jewelry. I have, it's just 24 karat gold. If you're tuning in and listening, I'm showing a beautiful 24 karat solid gold that's got a great weight to it, that I'm able to easily cross borders with all kinds of gold, versus maybe carrying around, you know, my different coins that I do have. Some I keep on hand, some I keep in a safe. And let's shift into solution based, because we could spend the next hour talking about so many things that people aren't really realizing what is happening. But I think we've given it a good overview that it's time to pay attention. It's time to realize what is actually going on, and now looking for these solutions. And I was introduced to a company called 7K through you guys. And it's part of why I was like, who better to come on than to talk about what is 7K? Why is going through 7K even better than Costco? And we were talking about this offline, that Costco's now selling gold, which, you know, you have to be a member to be a part of that. And they're not only just limiting you at Costco for how much you can buy, but Danielle, you had shared that, you know, you knew somebody that went to try to go buy it, and they actually didn't even have the gold available, which, if you spend more time in this world, you'll realize that is a very common risk when you're buying gold and silver from companies or from people that you really don't know who they are and what's inside their vault from a reserve standpoint. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Lean in however you want, but let's talk about 7K and some solutions.
Well, all right. I agree. I think that's very important. And I would encourage anybody out there, you know, reach out to inquire. We're going to just give you we're going to dust over on this a little bit, but I encourage you want to find out more. What we found was, when we were introduced to this company, it was a membership. The first thing, and I'll even have you talk to this, was the education in there that was probably the most critically important, because like Danielle had mentioned before, when we got it originally, we had no idea what we were getting, whether it was a good thing to get, anything about it. And that's probably where 99% of the people are. So they just get into paralysis because they don't know what to do. And do you want to mention that about?
Yeah, I'll just say the education platform that comes with the membership. And we are also a membership model, actually based off of one of our founders got the idea to create this company when he did go into a Costco. This was back in 1999, or it was the Sam's Club. It was one of those big wholesale stores, and asked to buy gold eagles here in the US. And they're like, we don't have gold eagles. And he's like, you got tires, you got food, you got everything else. What do you mean you don't have gold eagles? So they're a little late to the game, but looks like they caught on. But anyway, and in going in, what was, oh, sorry, I
Education.
the education. So anyway, when we got this, the platform does offer an education. So in 60 minutes, that's how long this education platform is, you learn the 5 reasons why you need gold and silver. And then based upon your individual goals, you now know what you need. And so when we watched that, I was actually a little annoyed, because what did I find out? I found out that everything the dealer sold us, we would have actually said no to, knowing what we know now. So I always tell people, knowledge is definitely power. The membership is worth the education platform alone. I mean, if that's all you ever did, there's so much more to it, but it's incredibly empowering. So I'm a big advocate for that piece of it.
Yeah, so that's one aspect, is you're getting education on both buying gold and silver in the form of bullion, which is non-collectible, just for the metals, something like this. Okay, like this right here, this is bullion.
Let them hear that.
Not even hear that.
It has
It's excellent. It's excellent. So that would be bullion. A collectible would be something that had been looked at.
Shae like held them up. Yeah,
exactly. It'd be something that's been graded. It's been looked at for flaws. The coins that we've gotten from this company are limited mintage. They're rare. They also are in perfect condition, so you keep them in the case. But those collectibles have tremendous value, and there's education on those as well. I'll tell you, because if we had not had the education on the collectibles, we were like, I don't want collectibles. And I'll guarantee you got people listening to this right now, like, I don't want collectibles. They don't understand the value. We didn't get the value. We started getting some of these collectibles, and that's been our highest return so far. Not that gold and silver hasn't been great. I think the best is yet to come with gold and silver. I think the very best is yet to come. But we've been seeing some tremendous, having a lot of fun, but also building value there. So
I'll just say a couple key words of that. So bullion, which is what we initially bought and what we really just wanted from the membership, that we thought that's all we wanted. This is the defense. What you were saying earlier, Shae, this is the insurance. What you were holding up, the collectibles, those are the offensive approach. And again, you also mentioned earlier about the importance of diversification. Who knew that you could diversify in gold and silver? But you can, and that's how you do it.
Well, these are like, this is like buying art, right? And even if you might be a person that goes, I really don't care about collecting art. There's a lot of people in the world that do. So even if you don't care about art, the collectible and the limited edition of it is what brings its value. And at the end of the day, it's still pure silver, or it's pure gold. So even if you don't understand the collectible component, as you just mentioned, Danielle, and I like this, on the offense, this still can act as your defense if you don't care about the collectible component, right? It's still the gold and silver. However, with the collectible, you are now entering into an investment world of rare commodities, rare limited editions, and whether or not, like comic books, I think about comic books. I'm like, who the hell pays $1 million or 500,000 or even $1,000 for comic books? Ridiculous. I think it's insane. However, I'd love to own one of them. I don't care for it, but I would definitely be framing it and keeping it, because somebody who I think is a little crazy is going to pay a lot of money for it one day. And that's kind of what the collectibles are. Like, personally, I'm like, I buy the ones that I think are cool looking, because I'm not a collectible person. I don't care, but I am an investor and I understand that world. even if I don't fully understand the value of certain collectibles. And I'm learning that, which again goes back to the education side within 7K as well. So I love that, though, the offense and the defense. It's good.
Yes.
It's good.
Yeah, and so I'll tell you that's probably, in my opinion, that's worth the cost of membership alone, because knowing what you're doing is powerful.
Yeah.
So you get an education on both bullion and on the collectibles. That's one. Second thing you're getting access to. So we're teaching you about it, which is important. Second thing we're doing is we're giving you access, and one of the ways in which they have that you can get access, you're going to get your own self-replicating website where you can shop on a products page, which is pretty awesome, and you can send friends and family on there too. Or you're even going to get a digital wallet that is 100% backed by physical gold and silver. So for example, if you don't, many people going into Costco, you want to buy an ounce of gold, you're looking at $2,000 plus. Many people don't have that. But with this digital wallet, I could put in $1. And what 7K would do is they would physically set aside a full ounce of that gold to cover me. I can't have it yet. It's going to be stored in a vault under the highest military protection and also fully insured by the premier insurer of precious metals in the world. So I can keep it there. When I earn a full ounce, I can have it sent to me if I want, or I can keep it stored. So people are going to have access to a digital wallet, which you can buy gold and silver in whatever increments that you want. It's going to be stored for you with literally up to $50,000 of silver and gold stored at no cost. That right there, I'll tell you, if you look at the value of that, that's a steal. It's amazing what you see there. And some people might like, well, I want to hold it in my hands. Here's the problem with holding it in our hands, everybody. And you can do whatever you want. If you want to have it shipped to you, you can. You just have to get it shipped to you once you paid for the full ounce. But here's the issue that I'm concerned about holding it at the house. If we're starting to go into a time in our society where there's a lot of unrest, and if there is a collapse or even a depression, there's going to be a lot of chaos in the world. And if people know that you have the metals at your house and you don't have this type of security like a private vault might have, you're putting your family at risk, and you're also making your house a target for someone who might want to go and get access to it. And that's why we keep a limited amount here. The stuff that we even got originally, now that's being kept in a private vault. We keep just enough to get us by for like a week or two, and the rest is all going to be stored. And this is giving us the access to that, and it's been outstanding. That's just another benefit. That's just a second one. Right now, though, I will tell you one thing we are doing is we're building a massive community of people here. And the massive community is extremely strong. There's other ways in which transfers can be done within the cash system and so forth. But even by having it within this community, we have people within our community of all different backgrounds, all different skill sets. People in our community who own, for example, right here in Maine, we have someone who owns a cattle farm. We have someone who owns a lumber yard.
We have doctors who are here with us at 7K building a new medical system. So it is, I mean, the community is incredibly valuable.
And if things really start to go south, people are going to want to have that community to be able to barter with back and forth, to be able to get necessities that they need to live. And so the community is probably one of the intangible benefits that comes with us.
And I'll just, there are many more benefits, but I'm just going to mention one last one. One of the, not only aren't we taught about gold and silver in school, but we're also not taught how to be good at saving. And what 7K has done is they've created a disciplined savings plan where every single month you can set it and forget it, autopilot. Instead of saving in those fake fiat dollars, you can actually have a beautiful collectible sent to you. So now you're saving in an appreciating asset. And that has been a game changer for so many families around the world. I know personally, Mark and I, we've never saved more money in our lives than we have since we've gotten this membership. And I know for a fact we would not have the savings we have had we never been introduced to this. We've now got our 3 kids all have their own membership. We had to obviously do a quick, all right, you weren't taught in school. They're now saving in silver specifically because it's much more affordable, but they're also taking part in the disciplined auto savings. So that's a big component as well.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's, what I brought here today, for our chat, this has all been on the set it and forget it model. And I'm huge on automations and efficiencies in life. And if you're relying on your brain to remember to do something, it usually doesn't work out as good as it should. And that for me is so efficient that like, I just all of a sudden I'll get an email being like, it's shipped. And you're like, oh, my silver is coming, my gold is coming. And I think it's fantastic. You know, I think it's important as we wrap up here. I just want to mention one more thing that why I love 7K. You know, I started out at the beginning sharing with you guys, I have a vault that's here in Canada that is separate of 7K that holds silver for me and my precious metals. I've showed you gold on my finger. That is a different company that's not 7K as well. And I highly believe I'm wearing it on my wrist as well. I have charms that are like gold as investment jewelry. One of the things I love about this company and that I think is really important is this is a solution for people who don't know where to go. And if you're already acquiring gold and silver and you're happy there, 7K will say, and Danielle and Mark, you can back me up on this, keep doing what you're doing. You know, this isn't to try to get you to come over. There's so many different benefits with the membership. Travel benefits is another one, and discounts at different entertainment facilities and so forth. And there are many others, as Danielle already alluded to. So if you're curious, we're here and available to help. But if you also have somewhere to go, you know, keep doing that. Right. And that's one of the things comes from the leadership at the top. And, you know, like I said today, I have 3 different ones, but this really helps my lifestyle. And just, you start just stacking, because I'm not buying jewelry every month. I have to remember to go and do that, you know? So that's one thing I really do love about the company, and that they've positioned it so that your average person, whether you have $1, $10, $100, or $1,000, and you just want to start acquiring, it's available to you. Unlike other options where if you don't have that $2,000 to buy that ounce or whatever it is, you're kind of shit out of luck. And 7K has created a system, a platform, a model that is very inclusive regardless of your financial circumstance. And it's one of the reasons why I got on board. I was like, everybody needs to hear about this. This is incredible. So yes. Any kind of last closing thoughts that you guys want to add to that?
I'll just add, you know, in a world that is so uncertain right now, one thing I can say is, and we have so many conversations with people who are worried. They're stressed. They don't know what to do. They can tell something's off, but they just don't know what the solution is. And so when we start talking to them and show them this, we keep hearing it repeated again and again. It was our experience. It is our experience. And anybody who's gets in the know and starts to understand and starts to save in gold and silver, you will sleep better. You will worry less. Yeah. We are called during these times. We have to be prepared. And this is one of the ways to prepare. There are other ways, of course, you know, food, you know, water, all the things. But this is one of the big pieces to the puzzle. And the other thing I'll say is, you know, as we watch the old systems collapse, because I truly believe that's what we're witnessing. I truly believe our company is a bridge to bring us over to the new ways. And we're doing it together as a community, a global community. And, you know, we invite people to take a look. We're not here to sell anybody on anything. We're not here to pressure anybody. We're just inviting you to take a look so you can fully understand and know that this is an option. And if it's a fit, then we help you with those next steps.
Yeah. And I would just say, you know, the only way that you can possibly lose is to be uneducated and not have any idea as to what's going on. Some people don't want to look there. I don't want to hear about it. You know, I just want to live in the way life is. The world is changing with or without any one of us. And so I think it's always better to be prepared rather than to be blindsided. And the best thing I would tell everybody is, you know, just do your education. We're here to help. We're all in the same boat together. And so we can all help each other and bless each other.
I love that. Well, friends, those of you who are listening, I'm going to be putting a ton of resources in the description, in the show links. So make sure to click on that and stay tuned. If you've liked what you've heard, I'm going to share with you a special weekly call that we are doing just for you to answer your questions live so that you'll have the opportunity to speak with us. And I'm going to share more details after I say goodbye to my lovely friends here on today's show, so don't go anywhere. Danielle, Mark, thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank
you so much, Shae.
Appreciate you having us on.
Always
Thanks
great
so
to
much.
see you.
I hope today's episode was really helpful, educational, and that you did learn something. And as much as there's so many crazy things going on in the world, rather than be focusing on the doom and gloom, we have solutions. We want to be empowered. And that was really my intention behind bringing on Danielle and Mark today, to offer some solutions. And if you are already acquiring gold and silver, I am so proud of you. I'm happy for you. And if you have not, or today made you even more curious about some other options of different benefits that do come with 7K, I wanted to extend this to you, that we are offering, I don't know how long it's going to last for, but right now, every Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time, we are hosting a Q&A on Zoom where you can come and ask all of your questions to get those answered for you. The only thing that we ask is that you do watch a 17-minute video that I'm going to include in the description below. And this goes into a much deeper dive conversation than what Danielle, Mark, and I spoke about today. So if it resonated with you, if you're curious to learn more, then I would encourage you, take that time, invest that time by watching that video, and then come and join us on a Tuesday. You can send me a DM on Instagram. My handle, if you're watching, is below on the screen, which is Shae Invidiata. But DM me on Instagram, Shae Invidiata, and DM me the word gold, and I will send you the link so that you can join us on Zoom, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. And of course, my DMs are always open. So if you have other questions in the meantime, feel free to connect with me. If you're already investing and you've got your insurance policy in gold and silver, flip me a DM. I'd love to hear what you've been doing. This is how we learn from each other. And I'm just grateful for this community that I have stepped into, and the people that I've met. They're incredible. And like I said, this is something that is available now to everybody. And that's what I loved so much about this, that it didn't matter how much money you have or how much money you don't have. You can start to take your own wealth. You can start protecting your own assets, and you can do it in your own hands versus relying on other people, institutions, governments, and so forth. And I want to take a quick minute right here to talk to my women, to my gal pals. A girlfriend of mine last night on Instagram went to a women wealth event. And one of the things that she shared about on Instagram was how up until 4 years ago, they had a very traumatic scenario happen in their family where she almost lost her husband. And it was in that moment where, once realizing he was okay and recovering, she was like, I don't know anything about our investments. I don't know our passwords to our investments. Our money matters. And oftentimes I hear women outsourcing or leaving it to their partners, to their husbands, to handle the finances. And this is such an empowering opportunity for women to really step in and start to learn about financial literacy, learn about money, learn about currency, learn about investing, and also the diversification of assets and what that even means. And so I encourage you, if you are a woman and you have not been doing this yet, it's never too late. I want to invite you to join us to just learn. Come and be open, learn something new, have some fun, and who doesn't want gold and silver? Like I said, like check out my ring. It's beautiful, and then you get different collectibles. There's all kinds of good stuff. So I leave it with you. I hope to see you at one of our Tuesday Q&As. Make sure to send me a DM on Instagram, Shae Invidiata, and make sure to send me the word gold, and I'll send you the link. Take care for now. Thanks for tuning into the Freedom CEO podcast. If you got value out of today's show, I would love for you to leave a review, as it will help my show reach other people as well. You know what to do. Download this episode, click the like and subscribe button. If you feel like spreading more love, hop over to Instagram and share today's show in your stories. Remember to tag Shae Invidiata and the Freedom CEO. My DMs are always open, so drop me a line. I'd love to connect. Until next time, keep owning your decisions to live a life of freedom. Live a life you love.